What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Presleevables March of the Machine edition. I'm your host, Cedric Phillips, at Cedric A. Phillips on all of the things, and I'm joined once again by Patrick Sullivan at Basic Mountain on Twitter. Patrick, the battles, check. Those are done. White, blue, black, and red, check. Those are done. Busted Green Planeswalker, coming right up.
Yeah, time to get into the greens.
Yes, it is. If you've joined us for other shows, thanks for doing so. If you haven't yet, you wanted to check out our analysis on the battles and the aforementioned 4 other colors, feel free to do so. It's all on this wonderful YouTube channel. But as we start to dive ourselves into the greens, quick explanation of the format of the show. This is our version of a set review. And in our set review, we're making top 5 lists because going over every card is lame. So I'm bringing a top 5 list of what I believe are the best constructed and competitive cards. And this guy over here,
talking about my 5 favorite, or what I believe to be best designs from a game design perspective.
And I'm going to dye my hair green for the next time we do this.
Got
Red all done.
months.
Yeah, I imagine green's going to be good in the next set, so I'll mix it up a little bit. Now, as always, you are going to kick things off with your number 5 card, which is
Kami of Whispered Hopes.
Hopes, plural, 2 and a green. So it's a 3 mana 1/1 spirit, as the Kami are. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a permanent you control, okay, that many +1/+1/+1 counters are put on that permanent instead. Then you can tap this thing to add X mana of any one color, where X is Kami of Whispered Hopes power. Before you dive in,
Not a top 5 template.
okay,
Yeah.
+1/+1/+1.
One or more than one more than the whatever the one or more number was.
Thought I was losing my mind reading that card. Okay, that's out of the way. Go ahead.
Not a top 5 template.
All right.
But love this design. Whenever you do +1/+1 counter stuff, get more of them. Super appealing and beloved. So is making a bunch of mana and mana fixing. This card does both at the same time. I also appreciate trying to get kind of a 5-color enabler into the backup experience,
Okay.
because backup appears across all 5 colors, and mixing the keywords and stuff in different ways is a fun sort of Mr. Potato Head puzzle to kind of figure out.
Yep.
So obviously this is not explicitly a backup thing, but that's where a lot of the +1/+1 counter stuff is coming from. Also works well with the incubate stuff too, as another direction you can go in with some of this. So very open-ended way of weaving a bunch of the different set mechanics in on a card that has a lot of stuff that's very appealing to a lot of players in a baseline.
All right, so that's his number 5. My number 5, Andrew Ellenbogen's not going to be happy about this. He's going to think it should be higher on the list. It's Polukranos Reborn.
Mm-hmm.
GGG. So 3 mana, 4/5 legendary creature Hydra. It's got reach, and you can pay 6 and either a white mana or 2 life, because it's Phyrexian mana, to transform this legendary Hydra into Polukranos Engine of Ruin. It is its version of being completed. It turns into a 6/6 reach lifelink, and it's got some Wormcoil Engine tendencies. Whenever Polukranos Engine of Ruin or another non-token Hydra you control dies, create a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra creature token with reach, and a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra creature token with lifelink. All right, so let's get the easy part out of the way. 3 mana, triple green, 4/5. Now, initially, if you're going to go in the Wayback Machine, that was Otherback Baloth from Zendikar. Okay. Well, now it's got reach, but it's legendary, so there's a little bit of a trade-off there. Creature type Hydra doesn't really matter that much. But nowadays, most notably in Pioneer, working its way onto Magic Arena is Mono Green Devotion. So Mono Green Devotion, of course, has Old Growth Troll, and it is looking for just as many green mana symbols as possible to partner up with Nykthos. This is going to give you the ability to do that while also being good in other matchups. There are some decks that have flyers like Spirits. Okay, now the upside here is, if I do have a Nykthos going, or if I'm just playing a regular game of Magic, transforming this thing's going to be really easy. Turns into a 6/6 reach lifelinker. Reach, again, good against those flying spirits, which does give Mono Green Devotion a little bit of difficulty. Lifelink is great as well if you're looking to race. No trample here, but it's totally fine. Then if you do kill it, again, you're going to get the Wormcoil-esque experience of, I get a 3/3 that has reach, and a 3/3 that has lifelink, as opposed to a 3/3 that has Death Touch, and then a 3/3 that has lifelink. Any thoughts from you?
It's giving me some Remaz vibes.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit more bearish on this than you are. And from the way you're describing it, certainly Andrew.
Yes.
At least with Old Growth Troll, it's like if it dies, not only do you have something, but you have something that really forwards your game plan.
Oh, yeah.
This is like it just dies and then nothing happens.
Yep.
And I would be convinced that the mana sink angle of this would be a thing to explore for that deck if it turned into something that was appreciably stronger or some game-ending threat.
Mm-hmm.
This is not really that. Like, it's good, it's fine, but it's not like once you do that, the game is just over, or if they don't have a removal spell on the spot, they're just dead.
Yep.
It's not quite that sort of thing. For standard, a lot of this is just so much informed by mana bases and what the incentives are that I could imagine this being extremely good if monocolored decks were a thing you were doing anyway. And I could also imagine it being extremely weak if the mana fixing's not there or you need to be playing 3 or 4 colors, whatever the case may be. But I'm going to, as far as specifically the mono green devotion thing goes, I am going to bet against.
Here's what I'll say. There's a reason it's number 5 on my list.
Oh, there's some bangers.
Yeah, there are some bangers, but also I'm with you. This strikes me as in mono green devotion, which is where we're focusing this aspect of the conversation. It's like a 2 of. It's not a 4 of because it's legendary. And also, I'm not convinced that, if I go Elvish Mystic this thing, I'm going to run away with the game. That's not really how Magic works nowadays. A lot of removal out there. It's not the hardest creature to kill in the world. And as you mentioned, if you do kill Old Growth Troll, you still get something on the kickback, and you don't get that here. So that is Pelucranos. We're going to go to number 4 for you, which is...
That would be War Historian.
2 and a green, 3/3, Human Monk. Reach. And then War Historian has Indestructible as long as it attacked a battle this turn. Okay, so we're incentivizing killing some battles with this thing.
Again, we see the text box a lot of whenever you're doing something to a planeswalker, blah, 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 blah. And because the battles resemble planeswalkers in some way, it's really easy to port over, it's kind of like the same thing. But it's not the same thing at all because you choose to play with battles.
Yep.
So you can make these synergies manifest yourself. I don't think this card is particularly strong for competitive play. I'm not making that argument. But I really like Reach here as a keyword that feels appropriate for the type of character that would be engaging in battles. Reach in green is often sort of flavored as like archers and that sort of thing. And so it's a kind of a oddball keyword to give to, it's not a spider, it's not a massive tree folk, but as far as the thing goes, there's a pretty good story there. And I also think the gameplay and incentives are really, really strong. It gives windows for your combat tricks to be used very effectively because you have the protection of Indestructible. And it's really sensitive to the exact defense number of the battle because this is hitting for 3. So it's much better at going after 3s and 6s than 4s and 5s in a relative sense. But you can toggle that with, giant growth or equipment or whatever. So very simple card again, but very evocative for what it is. And I like giving players some tools to not just here's a battle and here's all my creatures that have the best rates anyway.
Yep.
But here's something specifically for the task of going after the battles that I'm playing.
Got it. Okay. That's your number 4. My number 4 is Tribute to the World Tree. Green, green, green. So triple green, much like Pelucranos before it. It's an enchantment. And whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card if its power is 3 or greater. Otherwise, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So, again, this is a card that you could play in Mono Green Devotion if you wanted to. But more importantly for me, with this particular card, I put this here at number 4 because it just seems like it's good. I don't know exactly where the home's going to be, but cards like this it's priced pretty powerfully. It's going to go in a mono green deck. It is a mono green card that could be very good alongside Nykthos, obviously. And in mono green is maybe a sideboard card against decks that have a lot of removal. Great stuff. Just seems like this is a pretty high upside card. It can also be a card that doesn't see a ton of play, but I'm willing to take a gamble on this being a high upside card. Now, conveniently, this is number 3 on your list.
Yes.
So you can speak to this however you'd like.
I do like the design quite a bit here. One, the triple green mana cost is very evocative for what the design is.
Okay.
I wish sometimes Magic used extra mana symbols as a way of communicating flavor. That's something that you see a lot in Alpha and a bunch of the other sets of just Lords of the Pits and Forces of Nature that you're really trying to harness or channel this very green or very black thing. So triple green is very powerful at communicating that sort of thing. I also think this is a good way of doing the whole, all right, so how do you do Glimpsing Unthinkable? It's tough because the incentives are so strongly just to play with nothing but zeros and ones.
Oh, glimpse into nature.
Glimpse of Nature.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, you're good.
Glimpse of Nature.
Yep.
The incentive is so much of just play with nothing but zeros and ones.
Yeah.
This card is also not bad with zeros and ones.
Yeah.
They get a lot bigger. But if you're trying to turn on the faucet and just have this endless stream of cards, you got to play with things that are a little bit bigger. And that's creative. That requires some level of creativity because it's not normal to be able to do that. The last little bit that I like about this is it is so sideways you wouldn't even notice it. But I also think this is a cool design to do in a set with Convoke.
Okay.
Because Convoke is one of the routes to playing big things for 0 mana. And it is also nice when you're playing with cheap stuff that you're giving counters to. So to the extent there's a way to like go off with this thing, it's going to involve a lot of convoking out big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very satisfying way of getting another Convoke semi-enabler, semi-payoff into the mix on a card that does not read like a Convoke card at all. It doesn't reference creatures tapping or untapping, but you could try to go down that road, and I think that's really cool too.
Well, that was my number 4 for competitive and his number 3 for game design. So I'm going to go to my number 3 now for competitive, and it is a Merfolk Scout. It is Deeproot Wayfinder. 1 and a green, so it's a 2-mana 2/3. Whenever Deeproot Wayfinder deals combat damage to a player or battle, surveil 1. Then you may return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So I think it's very important here that you deal combat damage to a player or battle, you surveil 1. So look at the top card. Maybe it stays, maybe it goes in your graveyard, whatever. And then you can return a land card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It doesn't have to be the surveilled card. It can be any land card. So I look at this card and I think to myself, it's like maybe Mana Acceleration, maybe not. Okay, great. You know, if you are playing with the dreaded fetch lands or Terramorphic Expanse or something like that, you get a little bit of value there. Again, it's when it deals combat damage to a player or a battle, so not just when it deals combat damage, it's got to get through. But if it is able to get through, it is a different way of going about doing Mana Acceleration. Splashable, it's got a creature type that matters, and Merfolk is now Simic based as opposed to just being mono blue based or Azorius based as well. So you're kind of encouraged to be green blue with your Merfolk strategies. I don't think it's the best card in the world, but I do think it probably sees play.
I think there's a pretty efficient distribution of stuff. You get a really solid blocker against the most aggressive decks.
Yep.
And you get a source of card advantage and selection against very slow decks.
Sure.
So usually cards that can kind of play both sides of the field in different ways and do an acceptable job in both roles have a hole been constructed somewhere.
Yeah. And I like if you go back to the more powerful formats in Constructed Modern, I don't think it's going to see any play. Standard, I think it probably will. Though green does need a lot of help in Standard right now. And then Pioneer, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Right? But I do think there could be a home for this thing. I think the floor is pretty high. I don't think it bursts through any sort of crazy ceiling. It's not a format definer, but wouldn't be surprised to see it. See some play. See a little bit of play.
Potential wasteland lock shenanigans.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
I mean, it is.
You're not wrong.
Like, you could do that, right?
The fact that you can get any land back is notable.
Like, you could, I mean, theoretically, I know this is sort of pie in the sky. Like, this on turn 1 off of Mox.
Jeez,
and I have Wasteland, and like some decks are actually locked by that.
That's true.
Now, this is not the hardest thing to kill, et cetera, but
yeah.
When we're talking about a card that could be a card advantage engine just kind of on its own, useful on its own, if there could just be some backdoor soft locks that it also generates, just something to look out for.
Yeah, you never know.
Ghost Quarter.
Okay, yeah.
Why not?
Number 2 on your list, your runner-up.
Atrax's Fall.
1 and a green. That means it's a 2-mana sorcery. Destroy target artifact, battle, enchantment, or creature with flying.
So I like several things about this quite a bit. One is it's nice to get disenchant effects into people's main decks. Metagames are typically healthier when people at some amount of the time, game 1, can blow up permanents that are otherwise pretty hard to blow up.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't like doing the hokey Dissenter's Deliverance, cycling some way to get out from under it sort of thing.
Yep.
It's just too corny. It's like, yeah, of course, if you just put cycling 1 on it, people can put it in their main decks.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's nothing special. That's nothing special.
How did you figure that out?
Yeah, sure.
So trying to get it over with versatility rather than 0 opportunity cost is something that I really like. Green has a history, going back to Creeping Mold and kind of up, of destroy laundry list of characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
Artifact and enchantment, very common. Sometimes it can be land, sometimes it can be other stuff, sometimes it's attacking cards in the graveyard, whatever. Often those cards feel very mechanical to me. You're just writing out a list of stuff.
Sure.
The specific card types or characteristics here, on top of the name of the card, actually helps you remember what the cards are that you can target. It is not just a random pile of stuff. Even though I doubt this is a top-down design, I doubt someone started like, how would you express Atrax's fall? Well, you would kill an artifact. No, this is very supposed to be functional and mechanical, but the flavor here is not a 0. And that's a very hard thing to do with designs that are laundry list for completely different things.
Yeah.
And this targets them all the same way. Not an easy challenge. This card knocks it out of the park, and I think the design goals are very good here as well.
And one minor thing for me, I like that it's a sorcery, not an instant.
Love that.
Yes.
I mean, so a couple things there. One is like, it gives breathing space to make other disenchants. It's not just super inflationary.
Yep.
2, I think for green in particular, destroying creatures to the extent that's happening at instant speed, that should be through fight effects and not terminates.
Okay.
Even if you're calling out the card types, I think just for color pie reasons. And also, I really like sorcery on a card that can destroy battles, because I think it's super hokey for, in a set that's supposed to be about battles, you're trying to subsidize that, whatever, for you to go play a battle, attack you, and you're just like, blow up your battle, block it in the way that just blows up the most stuff.
Yeah, sure.
It's like, if someone can set up the battle in one turn thing, they get to do it. But if they can't do it and you have some resistance, then you get an opportunity to tap and blow it up. That's a so much better way of balancing the experience than like, oh, did you play with the new card type? Well, my card that also is disenchant and kill a flyer is that. Well, that's game over.
That's dead too.
Sorcery, a really good call on this one for a bunch of reasons.
Number 2 for me, my runner-up is Ozolith, the Shattered Spire. 1 and a green. So this is a 2-mana legendary artifact. If one or more +1/+1 counters will be put on an artifact or creature you control, that many +1.
We're back, baby.
That many +1/+1/+1 counters are put on it instead. That reads so bad. You can also activate this for 1 and a green and tapping it to put a +1/+1 counter on target artifact or creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery, and they threw cycling on this for funsies. All right, so there's a lot going on here, so let me break it down for you. It's got the hardened scales type thing going on. 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be put on an artifact or creature you control. Put that many +1. Okay, fine. 1 and a green, activate, tap this, put a +1/+1 counter on target artifact or creature you control, which means it's going to actually get 2, right? Activate this only as a sorcery, which, of course, nowadays, that's a good thing. And then, because it's legendary, if you happen to want to play 4 copies of this in your main deck, well, you can cycle the extraneous ones that don't die. All right. So, if there's a hardened scales counter deck, this is going to be in it, right? Almost assuredly. And maybe this goes into hardened scale decks in older formats. Okay. That's all well and good. I think this is pretty straightforward. High ceiling card. If those kind of strategies are good, this is going to be in there because they're also green based. All right. Here's my question for you. We've talked on the Presleevables about, you're laughing. You don't even have to ask. You're laughing.
I have but sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So we've talked about on the Presleevables about like players' experience with mill. And some people like it, some people don't like it, whatever. In this particular set, they're really leaning into the counters and like if you put a +1/+1 counter on something, you get additional one sort of thing. This seems like Green's version of, it seems like Green's version of mill or White's version of like tokens plus convoke and going wide on someone of just like, hey, people like this experience, so we're going to lean into it. Do you think that that's true?
I think so. And
Okay.
I think it's a pretty organic way of, so you're doing the incubation stuff that's kind of off on an island, and you have backup. And what is a way to kind of weave those experiences together?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're playing sealed deck or draft, or you've just opened up a box and you're building decks, it's not like you just get to build a coherent deck. It's nice if your cards work together well, even if they aren't, it's not 20 cards that say backup on them and 3 pump spells or whatever.
Sure.
So that sort of intersection, I think, is an appropriate thing to do here. If you've got 2 separate mechanics that involve +1/+1 counters, stuff's also pretty popular. Gets the game over with. I do hate this design,
Okay.
but that's a separate from the should you do +1/+1 counters.
Okay. So we have done battles, white, blue, black, and red. We've done 5 episodes. This is the 6th one. This is the first one that you've said, like, I hate this design.
The one white battle I have some nerves about.
Yes.
Okay. So there are 2 things I hate about this.
I'm going to guess the first one.
Well,
you hate this has cycling.
I do. That's actually second.
I figured.
On my list.
Okay.
Number 1, the activated ability is a lie.
Yeah, that's true.
It never does what it says it does.
That's true.
Because it's modifying itself.
Yep, that's true.
Stains.
Okay. Yep, okay.
Number 2, cycling on a legendary artifact.
That's stupid.
Do you believe in this or not?
Yeah.
Like at a certain point, it's like, do you believe in this being a legendary card and the opportunity cost that comes along with playing multiple copies of a legendary card, or do you not? Why is this the thing that it's like so important to protect the experience of the person who's playing with 4 copies of this? Who decided that?
Yeah.
This is, I mean, this is a pretty snowbally, repetitive card when it's strong. It's not like I'm going out on my way to subsidize the person playing with nothing but these. And if you're going to do that, it's like, can we come up with something that isn't cycling, for God's sakes?
For me, it's the reverse. But the cycling is more offensive because cycling on this card, it's like what you said with the naturalize that has cycling, which is like, ooh, nice job.
Wow, you did get...
Yeah, like give yourself a pat on the back. Now you can start naturalizing your green deck, except for you're not really ever going to use it except for when it's awesome. This, it's just like, okay, I've drawn one, they haven't killed it. I guess they get another card. It's like, why do they get another card?
Right.
They're doing a thing they want to be doing. Now they just get another card for what? Like what reason?
Right. It's your legendary build around. Your opponent could have a shatter in their deck. Even if you have the first copy, it's not a trivial decision to cycle away the second one, depending on the circumstances. Mm-hmm. So are you letting someone off the hook of a hard decision, or are you making it harder?
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah. Just, it's the same thing as like, for me, it's not exactly the same thing, but it's in the same camp as Hexproof on Lotus Field.
Okay.
It's like, why is this the person that like we need to make sure that they're having the best time possible?
Sure.
Like, yeah, it's like, well, yeah, if your opponent had any window to interact with this thing at all, they might prevent you from playing 25 spells over the next 9 minutes. Sure. We can't have that happening, so it needs to have Hexproof. It's like, who decided that?
Yeah.
That's the person to protect. You either believe in it or you don't. Yeah. And Hexproof on Lotus Field, to me, is like, you don't believe in it. You don't believe in the gameplay. You don't believe in the experience. You're just worried that someone might be upset their card got blown up. And then cycling here is on a legendary card is like, come on, work with me here.
All right, number 1 for you.
Oh God, I'm glad that we're pivoting to this.
Okay.
Streetwise Negotiator.
All right, so it's 1 and a green. That means it's a 2-mana 0/2 cat citizen, backup of 1, and this creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power.
Back it up 1.
That's right. Beep, beep.
So this card is just super fun and charming. You don't have to lean in the synergies if you don't want to, because this is essentially just a 2-cost 3/3.
Yep. It's
actually a fair bit of rate here.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can just find cards that are really fun and satisfying to deal back damage. Just a really charming, whimsical, fun card that doesn't require you to build around it, but you certainly can if you want to. It's, for me, a lot of my number 1 cards in this experiment, in this breakdown, have been, do I look at this and do I smile? Okay. This one made me smile. This is a great card.
This one almost made my competitive list. It was like going to be number 5
it's
potentially.
Not bad. I don't think it's not bad.
It's 2-mana 3/3.
Yep.
Right? With maybe a little bit of upside. And one thing that I know that Magic players do enjoy from being on tournament floors for a very long time is I remember when Doran came out, the Siege Tower, and everyone's like, it's kind of cool. It's like a 3-mana 5/5 that's kind of hard to cast, but it's like, yeah, but like what other like high toughness cards can I put alongside it? And then we kind of just went down that rabbit hole. I know there's that dragon. I think it's like Arcades. Someone's going to tell me in the comments that I'm wrong. Leave them down there. Appreciate the engagement. And like you build a deck around that, or like, you know, walls with butts, all this other stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like, we don't have like a term for this, I think, in the Magic community of like dealing damage with toughness as opposed to power, and like what that is. It just looks like a butt bomb, basically.
I call it boxing out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I like
Just
that.
putting your button to someone.
Yeah, that's
you know
right.
what
Just
I mean?
Kyle Lowry, just
Right, yeah,
backing
Kyle
it right
Lowry.
in. Sure.
Fire hydrant.
Yeah, I love it. I love that, like, this is a thing, and I don't know if it's ever going to be a great constructed deck. And this card is essentially just like, as you mentioned, basically a 2-mana 3/3 with some upside on backup and backing it up. But it is a fun design.
A good sign for me is a card so charming that it actually obfuscates how powerful it is.
Yeah.
And this is a great example of, like, this is a 2-cost 3/3 with other stuff going on.
Yeah.
With a single green mana symbol. You could totally play this in a deck.
Yeah.
But it's just so fun to look at that you don't register it as being powerful right away.
I got bad news for you. The next card you register as being powerful right away.
Yeah.
It's not hard to figure out. Number 1 on my competitive list, because there's really no other option, is Ren and Realm Breaker. 1 GG. So this is the 3-mana Planeswalker, which is already pretty risky territory, especially when it's green because of mana acceleration. Legendary Planeswalker Ren starts with 4 loyalty. Static ability is land you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. All right, so that's already like kind of worth a card. We've seen that card. There's like the Prismatic 2-mana enchantment. There's like Chromatic Lantern, some other stuff. We've seen that effect before. Generally close to worth a card. However, there are other things going on here. +1, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental creature with vigilance, hexproof, and haste until your next turn. It's still a land. The -2, so starts with 4 loyalty, bring it down to 2, is mill 3 cards. You may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand. And then the -7 is you get an emblem with you may play lands and cast permanent spells from your graveyard.
So this seems really good to me too.
Oh, really?
You want to talk about it?
Okay, so here's where I'll start. I'm not going to steal your thunder on the bobble thing because I didn't realize that was a thing. All right, so first and foremost, as I mentioned, the fact that it lets your deck tap for any color, it's really good, right? Mm-hmm. The mana is so good in older formats that, like, it's kind of trivial to do this, but also this will just assist and be nice. Okay, great. That's number 1. Number 2, just the fact that you get the opportunity to make a 3/3 with keywords of vigilance, which means you can tap the land for mana, then hexproof, which means it's not dying, and then haste, also really, really good. That's a lot of rate in just like, making things and beating your head in and attacking your planeswalkers or defending my guy. Okay, great. The -2 mill 3 cards, you may put a permanent card from among the milled cards into your hand. Permanent cards, a lot of different cards, right? That's land, that's artifacts, that's enchantments, that's planeswalkers, that's creatures, that's, I believe, battles, if that's a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so like that's a lot of options. It's obviously going to influence your deck building. You could also be a deck that's interested in milling yourself, so that's a way to do that too. And then the -7, well, ever since you've mentioned Mishra's Bauble being a way to go infinite, which I didn't think of, you would think that the emblem would say maybe exile the card.
Well, it's rough to say exile on a card that allows you to play your lands and cast permanents.
That's true.
Because those cards don't naturally get put back in the graveyard.
Yep, that's true. Okay.
So a couple things off the top of my head. So, okay, just at a baseline, play this on 3, go up to 5, and I have 2 cracks at the minus, or I can keep plussing.
Okay.
That's just a ton, right? And you get an offense defense on the token that you're making too.
Yep.
The -7. So the first thing that I thought is, okay, so with Mishra's Bauble, you draw your whole deck on a turn delay.
Yep.
Or as many cards as you want on a turn delay. There's probably easier ways to sort of synergize with that, I would assume, than Bauble, if you have cost reduction or other things that facilitate sacrificing things. But just with Mishra's Bauble, we're talking about playing with Mishra's Bauble here. It's not like a card, like how am I going to fit Mishra's Bauble in my deck, right? It's not that sort of thing. Another thing that you can do with this emblem is cast a fast bond style effect out of your graveyard and then start playing the same land over and over again. Again, the Ghost Quarter, Strip Mine, Wasteland sort of suite of lands.
Okay.
And you can play your, Azusa out of the graveyard because it lets you do that. Most of the fast bond type of stuff is going to be enchantments or creatures. So you get to play that, and now you're presumably your graveyard is stocked full of lands to do stuff with.
Okay.
And that's only if you're going down the combo road. If you're just playing this card just straight up, like pretty good, just as a value engine and mana fixer or whatever. But I mean, again, Mishra's Bauble came to me in like 30 seconds.
Yeah, I didn't even think
I'm sure that if I gave it an hour, I would come up with a longer list of stuff. And that's a card that's a 3-mana planeswalker with a lot of rate just at the plus to make a land and fight a little bit, or minus to draw some cards when nothing's really going on. Like, it's above rate for that. And the fact that you just have a variety of combos baked into the ultimate at a very low opportunity cost that you don't have to leverage and it can still be good later on in the game. I'd look out for this one.
I will say this as well, because this just came to mind to put a wrap on this Planeswalker. Two things. First one I already knew, which is anytime there's a green Planeswalker that costs 3 mana, immediately think of Elves Mystic, Land of War Elves, whatever.
Yep.
And the fact that you can cast it on turn 2. And we have seen that if you think of, and you were playing during the Gilded Goose Oko days, you played Gilded Goose on turn 1, you played Oko on turn 2, and I think its loyalty jumped from 4 to 6. And it's like, cool, I can never kill that. Well, it goes from 4 to 5, and 5 is still a ton.
Yeah.
Right, so that's just immediately one of my first thoughts. My second thought was, I know we had the mono green devotion conversation a little bit during this, and you're not big on Polukranos in that. Well, maybe you might be big in this insofar as it does provide 2 devotion.
Mm-hmm.
It does let you mill to find Old Growth Troll or anything, but also Nykthos.
Yep.
Which is more ways to find Nykthos, and that deck naturally draws it or finds it with Oath or maybe Cure triggers or whatever. But maybe this is a 2 of instead of Polukranos, which is I play this early. The fact that like you can tap for different colors of mana doesn't really matter very much in the mono green deck, of course, but this also gives you more attackers, more defense against aggressive strategies, and then of course you're trying to find your best card as often as possible in Nykthos, and this helps you do that.
Yeah, no, I'm a much bigger believer of this card in some number in mono green devotion than Polukranos. Not close.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think that's clearly the best green card in the set from a competitive standpoint. You've heard Patrick's thoughts on the cool cards from a design standpoint, and so that puts a wrap on our green episode of the Presleevables March of the Machine edition. On our way out the door, we'd love it if you did like and or subscribe to our page, our videos, all that jazz as we try to defeat the YouTube algorithm, or should I say become more friendly with it.
Yeah, we're frenemies.
Yeah.
The relationship could go in a lot of different directions.
It could. But we need it, and it doesn't necessarily need us, but let's just be friendly together. Let's go with that for now. If you like our lists, you can of course tell us in the comments. If you dislike them, you can do the same thing as well. If you think some cards should have made our various lists, and you want to share your thoughts and opinions on those cards, or want us to share our opinions on some cards and how good or bad we think that they are from a design or competitive standpoint, that's what the YouTube comments are for. So feel free to leave some notes down there. And if you would like to subscribe to our Patreon, you're more than welcome to do so over at patreon.com/theresleevables, where you get early access to Resleevables episodes. You get some sweet swag from us. Some of it is signed, depending on what your membership level is. And you also get access to the Unsleeved podcast, our Magic After Dark style podcast, where we take on plenty of readers' questions from all areas of the world. We kind of update you guys on what's going on in our lives, and it is a Patreon-only feature.
Yeah. As someone out there you're trying to take the piss out of, that's for Unsleevables.
Yeah.
Become a Patreon, send us a message. We love getting into the cheap heat.
And we'll answer any question.
We have already answered every question.
That's true.
So
That's true.
Get on in there. Costs a couple bucks. Well worth it if you think this is a good time.
So we've got one more episode to bring you because this set has a lot of gold cards and multicolored cards. So our next episode will be going over all of these crazy legendary creatures that are partnering up. Which ones are the best designed? Which ones are the best for competitive Magic and constructed Magic? You'll find out. Come join us then.